If weight training was that fundamental to speed and jump performance, then Arnold Schwarzenegger would be a 34-foot long jumper and 9.4 100-meter runner. Hello, I'm John Shepherd, and in this video I'm going to answer some questions on a perennial topic that comes up on the channel, and that's weight training, and weight training that will really benefit your long jumping, triple jumping and sprinting. Okay, Randuuum sends in a question, and it's very thoughtful and reflexive on the merits of weight training for jump and sprint performance. Part of his question and thoughts includes this statement: if weight training was that fundamental to speed and jump performance, then Arnold Schwarzenegger would be a 34-foot long jumper and 9.4 100-meter runner. He goes on to explain what he means by that by arguing that sprinting, for example, is neurological and relies less on muscle than it does on coordination and the neural factors that power up muscle for developing speed. In many ways, he's correct. Muscle size does not therefore actually delineate the ability to run faster. It does enable greater force to be expressed. However, it's the rate of force expression that counts. A weightlifter or somebody like Arnie can move a lot of weight. However, it's done at slower speed, and that slower speed is not going to necessarily transfer into improved sprint performance. Indeed, it won't. There's much research to indicate that weight training develops the type 2A muscle fibers as opposed to the type 2B muscle fibers. Now, the latter, fast twitch fibers, are in fact the most important for developing speed and power. Because you can't move a weight as fast as you can sprint in terms of foot contact and velocity, the transference is going to be within a narrower band. So therefore, it's seen that that type of weight training, or weight training I should say, actually targets your slower fast twitch fibers rather than the greatest power producing ones. Therefore, focusing on weight training without transferring or thinking about proper transference and other potentiating exercises is going to take you down a blind alley in terms of direct performance gains. Now, there is a counter argument. It's physiologically argued that the ability to lift a heavy weight can have a neural transference into sprint performance, in that in order to lift a heavy weight, regardless of the speed, you need to really switch on your neurological system to attempt to recruit the majority of your largest fast twitch motor units. And it's the neural transference rather than the muscular adaptations that's going to improve sprinting and jumping. That may be a little bit difficult to understand. So maybe let's think about a car with a big engine. To switch that engine on, there is a lot of electrical energy and computer energy needed in the modern vehicles that we have today. And so when it comes to training, it's that electrical and computer energy generated by the brain and the neural pathways that's going to have the greatest transference into actual sprint and jump performance rather than the development of greater muscle size. Now, this is such an involved and complex subject. I'm not anti-weight training by any stretch of the imagination. It does have a highly valuable role to play, particularly in mature athletes. But you've got to do the right weight training. You've got to stimulate the neural system to recruit the largest numbers of fast twitch motor units, and then you've got to transfer that developmental aspect into performance. Now, there are a number of ways to do that. You can do it directly, actually in a training session, by complexing and contrasting weight training exercises with plyometrics. The other way, or the more fundamental way and longer term way, is to make sure that your training program transfers the gains from your weight training into your sprinting or jumping. And this needs to have a carefully crafted and progressively selected training program and training units, so that you can really dovetail what you're doing at the pit on the sprint track with what you're doing in the weights room. You don't want to get a mismatch between those training modalities. Another thing that I constantly stress on this channel is to not just do concentric weight training exercises, i.e. that's where the muscle shortens as it moves the weight. So pressing up, lifting up on a squat, for example. You also need to train your muscles eccentrically and isometrically. Now those are more absorbent types of muscular actions when it comes to sprinting and jumping. As I've said before, when your leg hits the board for the long jump takeoff, for example, the muscles, ligaments and tendons around the ankle, knee and hip go on stretch, creating an eccentric muscular action. And there's also an element of an isometric one where there's no muscular movement. So those two muscular actions break and control the force exerted onto the takeoff board in the case of the example that I've just given. So in the weights room, you need to condition that eccentric and isometric capacity as well as concentric capacity in order to maximize your leg stiffness and your strength, the specific strength needed to jump and sprint particularly well or at optimized levels. A lot of research actually indicates that after a certain amount of concentric strength has been developed, you're not going to get greater significant performance gains from developing more. But that eccentric muscular action training in particular can have superior benefits at that point. So it's important to think about the different muscular actions and the different ways that you can train them in the gym and indeed outside of the gym. Another very interesting sports sciencey type of outcome of eccentric training in particular is that apparently it tends to target greater numbers of fast twitch muscle fibers as opposed to concentric training. So I've not looked into this in great detail, but I am aware of that finding. So potentially by doing more eccentric orientated weight training, you could be getting more speed orientated transference simply because the action, the muscular action, targets greater fast twitch muscle fibers. A very important thing to consider is the amount of time that you spend doing a particular training modality. If you weight train and you do a couple of sessions in a month mesocycle, then that's not going to have a huge effect. However, if you were to train in the weights room 3 to 4 times a week with a concentric emphasis over a 2 to 3 month period, then that will have a significant effect on your muscular architecture and how it all adapts. And that's where, in my opinion, you can get the negative effects coming in that you can develop a lot more strength in the weights room, but that strength is not going to directly improve your jump performance. Everything, as I said, needs to be synergistic. Your sprint training, your jump training, your plyometrics, and your weight training, which is eccentric, isometric, and concentric, all needs to dovetail into one another in order to maximize adaptation and not leave yourself slower than you would normally potentially be. A final factor that we need to consider is the adaptation from training. It's in the time when you're not in the gym, on the track, at the pit, when your body is going to adapt to the training stimulus. So, regardless of training modality, if you overdo it, particularly for the long jump, triple jump and short sprints, you're going to compromise your adaptation from the training. You want your fast twitch muscle fibers to develop to enable you to express more force. Neurally, your central nervous system needs to adapt to that as well. And by overtraining potentially, as I said, regardless of modality, you can stunt that adaptation. So planning in significant periods of rest and recovery is crucial. By significant, I mean that your training schedules, your training week needs to have designated active rest and rest periods, and they must be rest and adaptation periods. Nutrition is also crucial. Now, what I've covered in this video is actually quite complex, and you may need to go back and listen to it a couple of times to unravel the themes that I'm talking about. But it's important to consider how you weight train, what exercises you use, and in particular what muscular actions you utilize, and how you put all that together within your training plan. There's more I could have added on weight training's relationship in terms of developing tendon and ligament strength. So there are a lot of other areas that need to be considered, and again I'll go through those in another video. As usual, thanks for watching and good luck with your training and any competitions that you may have, and do subscribe to the channel and leave any comments that you may have in the section below this video or through my other social media. If you would like information on the FREELAP timing system, which is accurate to 2/1000th of a second and is extremely portable and works via Bluetooth and your smart device, then do get in contact with me. Likewise, if you'd like information on the NeuroCore MyTouch bioelectricity device, which is great for recovery, injury rehabilitation, sports massage, and even the enhancement of sports performance, then do get in contact.